Hey guys, it's Mario here, and in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about whether should you be doing cardio when you're bulking. When your goal is to put on as much mass as possible, should you be doing something like a treadmill, running, maybe even some high intensity interval training, and what is the kind of general recommendations? How do I do it? So we know that cardio is definitely a good tool when it comes to fat loss. It helps us expand more energy, helps us burn more calories, which allows us to basically eat a little bit more food while we stay in that caloric deficit. But when our goal is to maximize the amount of muscle mass we're getting, we basically need to eat in a surplus, right? So that kind of creates a conflict there. Where should we be doing cardio? I mean, we're just expanding energy that could be used to build muscle. Well, there are clear benefits of cardio even in a bulk, and specifically two benefits that I find very interesting is one, that's going to be your improved work capacity. Basically, cardio will allow you to do more frequent training through improving your recovery and increasing your work capacity. So you will be able to do more volume if you also keep some cardio in your routine on a regular basis. It's going to help you do more volume. More volume means more hypertrophy, more muscle growth. And the second benefit is a really interesting one that Ryan McDonald mentioned in one of his articles on cardio for muscle mass, is that you want to make sure that your body doesn't forget how to use fat for energy. So you want to keep those fat pathways where the fat is being used as substrate active. And that's a very interesting point there, because we know when we quote unquote bulk, we typically eat a very high amount of carbohydrates, we have an abundance of calories, and we don't necessarily use that much of fat usually as an energy source, even though, I mean, we are sleeping overnight and all these things. But he argues that it's pretty much needed for us to optimize our transition from that bulk to the cut, to do a little bit of cardio just to not forget, just so our body doesn't forget those pathways. And obviously, I mean, he's a world-around expert, and I'm sure that he has really good reason and a lot of research behind this. So I will definitely agree on these points, and primarily I would say that this applies for all the guys who are not hard gainers. Obviously, if you're a hard gainer, if you're a guy who's having trouble putting on mass, if you're a guy who's like eating a ton of calories, like 4,000 or 5,000 calories, and you're tracking it and you're not gaining any weight, you might want to avoid cardio. You don't need that extra energy expenditure. But for all other guys like myself, or guys who are simply just in a normal surplus, we don't have any issues with gaining weight, where we are controlling the weight gain, and we have our amounts that we want to gain based on our training age, I think cardio has a lot of benefits. And now the question is, what type of cardio? What do you include? Do you do low intensity? Do you do moderate intensity or high intensity? And I would say here that it's really important to put cardio in perspective, and I would not recommend doing some form of high intensity interval training, because those type of routines will definitely influence your recovery ability. And I would say that HIIT is a primary tool when it comes to fat loss, much more when it comes to gaining muscle mass, because you're going to be beat up so much from your training, especially when you're gaining muscle mass. Your goal is to progressively overload, add more weight to the bar, really hit it hard. I think that high intensity interval session might interfere with your recovery ability. So I would really not advise that. I know there's people out there who like swear by it. I know a lot of people will be able to do that with no problems. But I think for the vast majority of people, high intensity interval training doesn't have a place when you're bulking. And now we have those two left, which is low to moderate intensity. And this is where there's a lot of extremist viewpoints in terms of the bodybuilding world. Some bodybuilders will say like, fuck all the cardio, I'm not gonna do shit, I'm just gonna go to the gym, I'm just gonna lift weights, I don't need to do that. It's not a diet, it's not a fat loss phase, I don't wanna do anything, any form of cardio. And that's like one extreme. Then there's the other extreme, is like, well, I want to do a ton of cardio. I want to do hours and hours and hours of cardio every single day. Let's say like 30 minutes of cardio every single day, or like an hour of cardio every single day, in order for me to minimize fat gains, right? And we know that, look, if you want to maximize muscle mass, if you want to maximize muscle hypertrophy, you need to gain a little bit of fat. And also a chance that's going to happen is that if you do too much cardio, I mean, are you an endurance athlete, or are you a resistance training athlete? You know, right? If you're doing 6-7 sessions of cardio and 4 sessions in the gym, I mean, you're more leaning toward that endurance extreme side of things. And that's where an interference can occur. And this interference doesn't mean like you're losing muscle mass, like a lot of people say, hey, I'm just doing some cardio, I'm just gonna melt all the muscle away. But it really can't slow down those adaptations toward gaining the maximum amount of muscle mass. So it's basically just slowing down because you're adapting to a different master, quote unquote. Like your body can't serve two masters. You can't serve the endurance training and also the strength training master. So you have to choose one of them. And it all depends obviously on the volume, on the modality, and the type of cardio. And I would say the types of cardio that I would really avoid if I'm doing a bulk would be something like running, something like, let's say, any form of high impact style of cardio, maybe downhill jogging and stuff like that, where we really put a lot of stress on your joints, a lot of stress on your muscles. And I think those types of cardio really do mean that you're training for endurance. Like those types of cardio are endurance training. And the types of cardio that I would recommend would be something more in lines like cycling, something less impactful, maybe an incline on a treadmill, like very, very mild intensity, something like low, moderate intensity a couple of times a week would definitely not have any negative interference. And that's basically what you want to balance. You don't want to go to the extreme where it's like, hey, every single day for hours. You don't want to go to the other extreme, which is no cardio at all. So you want to find a nice healthy balance there in order to, as I said, increase your work capacity and maintain a very high work capacity. And then you also want to make sure that those fat burning pathways are still active. One really interesting alternative is that something that I apply is I don't really enjoy cycling. I don't really enjoy that much of a treadmill. I pretty much hate it. I really like walking. That's one form of cardio, so I'm gonna make sure that I have my long walks, that I take breaks from work where I'm gonna do the walks. But also, I like to use barbell complexes. I like that metabolic type of work through lifting weights because I love to lift weights. And lifting weights is my cardio on some days. Like those days where I would call them power days or fatigue management days or technique days or recovery days, however you wanna name them, you can simply go to the gym and lift weights in a form of cardio because that is very close to the high intensity interval training. But since you're doing lifts that you're familiar with, you have that repeated bout effect working for you. Because what's going to happen is that repeated bout effect will not allow the muscle damage part to kick in. And also, since you're repeatedly doing the same lifts, you're able to recover from them faster. Plus, you're going to benefit from more technique practice with that lift, so higher frequency technique practice. I mean, there's a lot of benefits from this barbell complexes, metabolic resistance training. I actually made a video about it a while back, as that's my favorite form of cardio, simply going to the gym to have fun. I look at it like, okay, how many sets of 5 can I do with 5 different exercises within the next 5 minutes? I'm just gonna challenge myself. And if you think about what is high intensity interval training, what is it really? I mean, it's just a period of intense activity combined with a period of resting. And that's the same thing you're doing when you're lifting weights. Like you do, let's say you do a set of 20 reps on a squat, that's definitely gonna put your heart rate really high. And then you would be doing something like a rest period, and then you would be doing the set again. So that's essentially what you're mimicking when you're doing metabolic resistance training. You're combining the best of both worlds. And necessarily why I disagree with adding high intensity intervals, because that would be fine for a sprinter. Let's say someone is a sprinter, or someone is a soccer player, or someone who's trained. I mean, I used to play soccer. We were trained to sprint. We know how to sprint, but we're not like guys pretending to know how to sprint, that they're just gonna do sprinting uphill or downhill or whatever just because some muscle magazine told them it's good, right? There has to be a skill when it comes to sprinting. And I mean, if you look at all the research, elite sprinter has twice as much chance of getting injured as a marathon runner. And I would say that a person who is not an elite sprinter, someone who's quote unquote pretending I don't know how to sprint, has even doubled the amount of injury risk. So that's a really, really high risk of injury. Plus, even if you don't get injured, I mean, you're going to create so much unnecessary muscle damage that what is the point? I mean, you're just doing this for cardiovascular health. You're not doing this to get muscle damage. Muscle damage is just not going to help you at all here. So you want to be investing a little bit more time into those barbell complexes. So let's say you would have a day in the week where you do that type of metabolic work with higher repetitions, where you do more like a circuit style of training, so maybe a day a week like that to make sure to keep those fat burning pathways alive, or just simply 2, maybe maximum of 3 sessions. I would stick around 1 to 2 sessions of just regular old style low to moderate intensity cardio, maybe cycling if you enjoy that. Combine that with a good audiobook and you have yourself a win-win there, because you can learn some cool new stuff and you can also get the benefit of cardiovascular health and all the other benefits as well. Increased work capacity, recovery time is lowered, and all these other good things. And I would say, as a final word here, is try to separate as much as possible between the sessions of resistance training and cardio. So this is a big one especially when you're bulking. You want to separate as much as possible. Let's say you're training 4 days a week. You want to make sure to do those cardio sessions on a separate day. Or let's say somewhere further inside of the day, like somewhere on a whole, let's say you do your resistance training in the evening, you would do the cardio sometime in the morning, just to have it as further away as possible, to make sure that it doesn't interfere with your progression in the gym. Because progression in the gym, remember, is the key to building muscle, to building strength, which is why you're bulking in the first place, right? You're not bulking to become an endurance athlete. So think about all of these things. Make sure the cardio is separate. Ideally on a separate day. Would be awesome if you could do that, and add a couple of sessions, still retain those benefits. Even if you don't add them, it's not that bad. It's like just will take you a little bit more to transition from that quote unquote bulk to a cut, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I've done different cycles of bulking and cutting in the past where I didn't do any cardio during my bulk, and I still didn't feel that much of a difference. I mean, I might have felt some benefits if I did do, but currently I do recommend adding a little bit of cardio just to make sure that those pathways are active, because you're spending so much time in a caloric surplus that the body kind of forgets, according to the research that Lyle has, that kind of forgets to use the fat as a substrate for energy, at least a dominant one. So hope you guys enjoyed this insightful video on how to do cardio when you're bulking. This is pretty much the information that I currently use and apply, and it does generate pretty decent results. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions on this topic. So shoot me a comment below. Leave your thoughts if you're currently bulking as well. Definitely have a question around that. Make sure to hit it up in the comments. As always, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well to support this channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.